Welcome to the place of rest, where our aim is to give you language that helps you displace the growing confusion, chaos, and dis-ease of our times. My name is Jonathan Boyce, and it's my pleasure to bring to you today's episode. Virginia and Andi Locke-Mears continue to discuss German New Medicine and what we can do to step into rest and support healing. We hope you enjoy today's conversation.
Andi, I'm so glad you're back. One of your last statements in the last segment was about establishing a rhythm after the active, the sick, and the epi.
The epi crisis, and then we go into the final phase of healing, and then we get back to our normal circadian rhythm. Yes.
So another conflict hits in that. Well, talk about what's a circadian rhythm.
Well, it's our normal day-night cycle. For the most part, we're awake during the day and we're asleep at night. That's our circadian rhythm.
When we sleep at night, if we don't rest, that circadian rhythm is disrupted.
It is. And so there's a lot of studies done on folks that work the night shift and how their circadian rhythms get off a bit.
We have a rest and recover first responders program that we've launched, and these guys have unpredictable hours. Every single day in their life is an active state of confusion and chaos and dis-ease, if you will.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what happens in the normal rhythm? There's sleep, wake cycles, right?
Right.
And the body naturally adjusts. Take us through the process.
Yeah. So like I explained in the last segment, we've got two phases here. So we have our normal natural circadian rhythm where we're awake during the day, we're asleep at night. And then when we have a biological conflict shock, so it fits those three criteria I've mentioned, then now we're no longer in our normal circadian rhythm. We're sympathetic dominant. So our daytime nervous system is on. So we're running from a saber-toothed tiger. Whether it's just our boss who put extra work on our desk on a Friday and we have to cancel our weekend, or it's something that is you just lost a loved one, your circadian rhythm has changed. You're now conflict active, what we would call conflict active. And so you're hyped up. You're, again, running from that saber-toothed tiger. And it's not going to return to a normal circadian rhythm until you resolve that conflict. You get through your healing phase, and then you'll be back to it. Now, the challenge is when we don't always finish that healing phase, and we have a conflict relapse. And now we're running from the saber-toothed tiger again, and then we go back into the healing phase. So anything chronic, a rash, Parkinson's, arthritis, anything chronic runs because of tracks, because we keep having conflict relapses, and that changes our circadian rhythm as well.
Would that be a child whose parents are alcoholics or drug users and life is very unpredictable, that they're continuously in that stress cycle?
Well, this is different than stress.
It is. Well, or they're continually in that biological cycle, that biological conflict.
Some are, some aren't.
Okay. What's the difference?
On how they are interpreting their events around their life. And it all depends on their subconscious. This is not something they're doing emotionally or mentally. It's their subconscious that's determining, is this body safe?
So understanding early childhood attachment then and early family systems really becomes important in helping people apply these principles of German New Medicine.
Well, you can go down that route for sure. We don't absolutely have to do that in order to help people.
Okay.
People already know what their issues are from childhood. What we're looking at is what's happening now.
In the body. But if we don't deal with the others simultaneously, the attachment issues, the cycles keep running and keep repeating themselves.
Well, attachment issues are not part of Gemenische Heilkunde.
Yeah, you really stick to the biological conflict.
We do. But let me bring in the other segment here. I mentioned I have a course on psychoses and constellations.
I'd like to talk about that.
Because this is probably going to be closer to what you're talking about, Virginia. So we have a conflict shock. We have a lesion that's turned on a program in the body, somewhere in the body. And we're conflict active. So we're mulling it over. It's like, I've lost my job. My cat got run over. Whatever it is. I'm arguing with my spouse. And you didn't expect it. And now you have another conflict shock that occurs. You're already conflict active. But now you have another conflict shock that impacts. It's not going to land in the same hemisphere. It's going to land in the opposite hemisphere. So now both of your brain hemispheres have a lesion. They've turned on programs, and you are now double conflict active. The moment of the impact of that second one, you constellate, which means you have an instant behavioral change.
So constellations, as you define them, are changes in behavior as a result of compounding conflicts.
Yes, I would say that would be accurate. Yes, you've got two conflict active phases, and that's too much for the body and the mind to process. These are both life and death situations to our psyche, not to us, but to our psyche. And it's too much. So we are put into an altered state. And that can look like being depressed. It can look like being boasting of yourself. It can make somebody a psychic, a medium. You could become aggressive. There's about 25 different constellations. And this is different from family constellations. This is biological. We see the constellations in the brain. And when we can see those, we understand the person's behavioral patterns.
What's the convergence between the biological constellations and the psychological ones?
The biological cause the psychological.
Okay.
So if you want to get to the root of the psychology, you have to go to the biology.
Okay. That's a big statement.
That's a big
one.
If
you want to get to the root of the psychology, you have to go to the biology.
You have to, yes.
I wonder if in the most practical and simple way, you can give a summary to Dr. Hammer's findings, to the universal principles they explain, to what can our listening audience do with this knowledge in the most practical ways that can impact them.
So Dr. Hammer, his first job after med school was working in a psychiatric unit. He saw firsthand what these folks go through, and it was horrendous. This was a few decades ago in Germany. So he always wanted to get back to that. Once he mapped out the entire brain, so we know the conflict shock that occurs for every disease out there, he turned his attention to mental illness, mood disorders, behavioral issues. And that's when he discovered that all of them are biological.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's what I teach in my psychoses and constellations class.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Where can people listening find the map, the entire map that he put together? You said once he finished mapping, and you cover all those areas in your coursework, right?
Yes, they learn all of the different areas, how to research every single program. So I give resources on how to do that. There is a wonderful book. It's the book that I originally talked about in the last segment that I purchased that I couldn't make heads or tails out of. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like on the inside. And it's all kinds of pictures and diagrams. And you can see it's all color coded. We've got yellow, orange, and red. Those are the different germ layers. So this maps it all out very succinctly and in Dr. Hammer's words. And it's very accurate. So we have one place we can purchase it, and that's in Spain, from Spain.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. I don't know how interested the average listener is, But given the states of disease that we're dealing with in every demographic, every age group, specifically since the pandemic, what are your thoughts on the benefits of what you offer to people, education-wise, to people that aren't well?
How do we use this? What do we do? The first thing I'll say is that you want to try to learn this when you're well. Number one, learn it when you're healthy. So that when you have a symptom, you know exactly what's going on. You understand what your conflict shock was. You can look up the program and understand, okay, this is what I can expect. And then you can support your body in many different ways to get through the healing phase. First, to find a solution if you haven't yet, but chances are if you have symptoms, you're already in the healing phase. And all you have to do is support your body, rest. Your body knows what to do to get through that and to return you to health. So what this gives people is a roadmap on how to interact with their body and how to take care of it. It's incredibly empowering because it gets us out of fear. It is fear that creates other additional conflict shocks in the body. That can occur at the moment of a diagnosis. You start other programs that they will eventually find because you'll have symptoms.
How can people reach you?
Through my website, which is my name, andilockmears.com.
Your enthusiasm for this work and your capacity to make very complex things simple is inspiring. It's motivating. I've been saying for years, there's not one single person that can sit this one out. We find ourselves in a time of great confusion, chaos, and dis-ease in our nation. And ultimately, it's a violation of universal principles that can be easily understood by laws of nature. And I think the work of Dr. Homer and how you explain it, and the work of R.E.S.T, the collaborative work that we all do, really begins to create a synergy that makes health, wellness, and really the freedom we can live with in the midst of
absolutely
this place we find ourselves in. It's hope. I mean, I think it's just hope.
Exactly. The tagline on my website is free yourself from the fear of disease. Let's do that.
Wow.
So to answer your question on what do you do if you have symptoms, well, then learn it as soon as you can. That would be important so that you can get yourself out of fear. This is all very self-empowering. This is all knowledge we can learn and use for the rest of our lives. We can raise our children with this so they are empowered forever. We can use it with our animals. It works.
You have the capacity to self-govern. If you're listening to this, you have the capacity to self-govern, and you have a mechanism, an organism that's uniquely designed to collaborate with your will.
Yeah.
And our hope, Andi, and I know you're a sister in this, but our hope is to displace ignorance that's been strategically woven into the fabric of our society. And all we're trying to do is displace it with information. By the way, there's no shame in ignorance. Ignorance is something we should pity in ourselves and in others, right? Ignorance is just not having information.
Right.
But you don't have to, we don't have to be dumbfounded by our ignorance if we just admit that we just don't have the information.
Yeah.
But we must not double down on ignorance, dumbfoundedness with stupidity, because then the disintegration makes us all fools.
Right.
And so we can't double down because of pride or fear.
Right.
We thought we can resist this disintegration on every front.
Exactly. It's really about just opening that door a little bit and exploring this. It's not for everyone. I know that. Not everyone wants to be self-responsible in that way. And I get it. they just want a pill, make this symptom go away. That's not, Gemenische Heilkunde is probably not going to appeal to them. And that's okay.
That pill has a lifeline. That pill is very limited in what it can offer you. Sooner or later, hopefully it's not at one of our clinics, but there's so much more.
There is so much more. Correct.
Free yourself from the fear of disease.
That's my byline. Yes.
I love it. Thank you, Andi.
You are so welcome, Virginia.
We hope listening to this episode has brought you closer to experiencing the freedom of wholeness and healing. If you have questions or comments about today's episode, or for updates about R.E.S.T, please visit our Instagram or Facebook at The Place of R.E.S.T. If you would like more information about Virginia, or to support and join the cause of R.E.S.T, please go to theplaceofrest.com/donate or call 949-289-5935. Thank you for listening to R.E.S.T with Virginia Dixon. We'll see you next week.